Hi everyone, Alena here with Celebrate Every Step, and I am here today with Shelley from the House of the Mystical Maven. And I am so happy to have her because she is an absolutely beautiful soul and brings so much value to this world. And we are going to be talking about her tarot work, her art, her yoga, and just all about how she lives her life in it's such a beautiful, sacred, and intentional way. So, welcome, Shelley. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to
Yes.
be part of this network.
Yes. And for those of you watching on video, you'll see that she has beautiful nature background with her. And for those on the audio, obviously you're not going to be able to see that, but just know that she is sitting on some beautiful moss with some rocks and water in her background. And I'm feeling very jealous about that right now.
Yeah, to know that a lot of people, well, for me, I long to be outside when I'm not. So I thought maybe
Hmm.
I hope the sound comes across in the audio okay. There'll be some cawing of crows and maybe a low hum of some traffic in the far background and hopefully a little trickle of water from the stream
Yes.
behind me coming through for anybody who needs that little daily dose of nature. So
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're sounding pretty good to me. So hopefully the audio comes through okay for everybody else. And I used to, when I would go hike on a more regular basis, which I need to get back to, but I would just record leaves falling. So you'd hear the wind rustling through the trees and then see the leaves falling and get close to the water and record that and just, video the water coming over the rocks because there is something so soothing to for with that. And I don't think everybody gets out and experiences that often enough. So I love that you're sharing that with those of us who can actually see your background today. Yeah, no, they're all on my YouTube. If people want to go check out those ASMR, nature immersion, whatever.
yes, so yeah, so vital and so
Yeah.
much inspiration is drawn from those like moments of just finding that where
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot happening even in the stillness. So
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of leads us right into I know that you draw on nature quite a bit for your inspiration in your yoga, in your art, just how you live your life. So I would love to hear how you bring nature in because I know how healing it is, but I'm not sure that everybody else out there has tapped into that beautiful resource that we have.
yeah, yeah, it's so vast. Like it is something when you start to, I think it's almost hard to pay attention to because there is so much information,
Mm-hmm.
that can be received when you open yourself to that natural realm that, perhaps for those who haven't looked there yet, that's, could be potentially where the stoppage lies. But I think that tuning in with the stillness of it, where those subtle signs come through, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
a spider in your house or something like that, where these little invitations to like engage with
Mm-hmm.
something or a plant that keeps showing up in your yard year after year that you didn't put there, is like that invitation to see what's there. I think just the tempo of it and the pace reminds me to, because I tend to be hurried. Like I want to
Mm-hmm.
think of something and I want it to happen now.
Yes.
Like my tendency is to be like, okay, I've thought of that. Now I want it, here. And like in keeping a tempo and a pace with the natural rhythms, whether they be the day-to-day cycle of the sun or the longer lunar cycles that run, more of a 28-day span, like kind of, charting our experiences like by these rhythms really do create like a comfort in the fact that things sometimes just need their own cycle, to
Yes.
carry through. And I'm learning more and more about, the planetary kind of aspects, and those are even longer cycles and they can run years. And when you look at things that occurred, 7 years ago, and then, things that arise again, we come full circle, and, this spiraling kind of like journey, the spiraling dance that we do, how those, it's just, I don't know, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, and I love that. I did a moon magic class this week and I'll be offering it 2 more times in person. And I'm so excited because it was exactly that. We were talking about looking to the sky for inspiration on, the waxing, the waning, the new moon, the full moon, what each of those meant, and how to best utilize that in our day to day life. And one of the ladies said, I love the moon because it's my visual reminder that life is continually moving and shifting and changing. And it's exactly what you were just saying. There's these cycles, there's these rhythms, there's these flows that if we're just busy, 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 we lose that. We lose that connection to those rhythms, to just slowing down enough to check in with ourselves and find what we most need in our day. And so I love that. And when you were talking, this brought to mind, I was putting together some more information on the chakras with the upcoming expos, which Shelley will be a part of our June 24th expo. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. But we make chakra sun catchers. I have chakra wind chimes this year. I'm a big chakra fan. So I was putting together some information to hand out to people. And with the crown chakra, what I was putting down was that's the top of the head, that's the pineal gland, and that's our center for union with the cosmic energy. And it encourages us to just be, as we always have been, as we always will be. Our opening consciousness opens as a flower in spring. It happens without forced effort, without perception. It happens in the quiet spaces as we just allow ourselves to be still and at peace. I love that. And that's exactly what you were talking about there. So,
That's really great. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Such a great reminder too that, yeah, you don't have to be doing to achieve these, a lot of times it's the less, the emptying.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
that space, that stillness. I call it inspired action instead of just spinning wheels and creating chaos. Where do I need to actually take action? And I love that so much. And so I want to talk a little bit about you and your background and kind of what you're offering to the world. So I met Shelley a few years ago at the Indiana Expo, which is coming up this weekend. And that's in Indiana, PA. And you were nursing a new baby and needed a chair to sit in. And so I was like, I've got this big comfy chair, come sit down. So it was really just one of those neat connection ways to meet somebody. And, I loved my little babies and baby wearing and, taking that time to nurse and, do those things. So just a really neat way to get to know you and meet you. Totally random too. Well, of course, not random, but
in motherhood too, those invitations mean so much too. That was one of the first times we even really went out, like, aside from the need to do things. So really just like enjoying a day out to go do something that was just like, for the fulfillment of, the interests of me, I guess.
Yeah, your own interests again. Absolutely.
So yeah, that invitation to sit and just have that space was like just the welcoming that, felt like it was, yeah, just a beautiful reach out, and I appreciated that so much at the time.
Yeah, and then
Still,
we've just gotten to know each other more over the years. And a few was that must have been last year where I saw you were doing some card readings at a cafe in the area where you are, and it's close to the Allegheny National Forest, which we love. And so we went up and hiked, and then came over to see you, and it was just such a beautiful day, and definitely one of those synchronistic days where we had gone to the water. So every hike we do, I try to either begin or end with water because my kids love it so much. So we stopped to play in the water, and I felt the water running over my hands. And then just like a day later, I was listening to an Abraham Hicks, and it was talking about the flow of water and how beautifully magical and powerful it was to feel the flow of water over our hands. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just experienced that. And it was such one of those moments where, those moments where you just feel things in your soul. And so as I leaned down and felt that water, it was one of those moments. And then to hear it confirmed that very next day on that Abraham Hicks podcast, I was like, oh my goodness. And then I got to see you that day, and it was just, I love those synchronicities. I love those full circle moments. And so, yeah, if you'd like to talk a little bit about the tarot and what you offer around that, I would love to hear your story.
yeah. And yeah, the water too. I was just gazing at it because I'm so lucky. I have a running creek behind my house. So it's something you come to visit as much as possible, and my daughter loves it too. She's 2.5 now. But yeah, just noticing the way that it moves around the rocks and bends. And one of our mandala full moon mandala art classes, we did a guided meditation when we were at Twin Lakes. I don't know if you've been to Twin Lakes, but it's a really nice park nearby too. But talking about how water needs a container, then yeah, so even the moving pieces, there's water underneath that's not moved. But anyways, with the tarot's been a really amazing, profound journey. I was thinking before we got on about how I named the umbrella term for all the different things I do, because I've accumulated these projects over the years in my studies, whether it be like the mandala art teaching or the yoga for children or yoga for adults or the tarot. So I came up with the term House of the Mystical Maven. And then I was thinking how, even just writing that before, writing that to claim it as a business was almost like a contract into a journey itself, to like not even really aware of how much it would embody. And as we go through, and the more I do tarot with others, the more I realize how just wildly informative it is to somebody, and where they are, and how it's like opening a door and into clarity, into choice. I book sessions about an hour long here in Kane, and then I do events where it's more of like a one reading after the other, like we'll do for the upcoming expo at the end of June. And it's interesting how often my boyfriend just brought up yesterday how many cards are in a deck, and then what the chance of the recurrence of set of cards is. And it's like, it's huge. Like there's not much of a chance that you're going to ever get the same layout, but then sometimes there are general themes, like especially we were talking about the cycles of nature during certain astrological events, where like during Leo season, the strength card, which is under the sign of Leo, came up. Like I was doing an event, last July, and it was like so many of those readings had the strength card in it, and things like that, even during like Libra season, oh, it's starting to rain now, but we're
Power through the rain.
um so yeah, things like that where it's like, yeah, you can't really make it up, you
Hmm.
can't make this stuff up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I have some oracle decks that I've had for years and years and years. And I have pulled the same five cards over and over again. And then, I'll do a reading for somebody else and something else will come up and I was like, I've never seen that card before because, doing it for myself, I keep getting the same messages because clearly I haven't learned that lesson yet. So, yeah, I love how the cards do illuminate what we need to put some attention and intention into. And that's the really neat thing about tarot is that it's just another tool to help us be more aware of what we need to acknowledge, what we need to work on, but also the support that we're being given, whether that is from nature or the saints and angels or ascended masters. I've had some other tarot people on to talk, and there's just so many layers of symbolism and different religions and different belief systems. And
yeah,
so you really can tailor it to your style and what you most need in your life. And that's the really neat thing about them as well.
it's true. And it's fascinating, like, um because yeah, there's so many, like you said, kind of layers of which you can interpret the meaning of the card. So yeah, whether it be as simple as our physical world, or these depths of our emotional bodies, or our spiritual nature, or those who are coming through from more of like that spirit realm,
Yes.
these larger energy bodies that are more cosmic, that
Mm-hmm.
have something to share. And it's yeah, it's quite a vast language. And I find that the more it's a conversation with the person who is getting the reading, the
Mm-hmm.
more we're able to kind of dive deeper. So rather than just coming to the table to let me talk at you, it's like
Yes,
the more that we
absolutely.
engage together in a conversation, the more we're able to kind of like get out of the reading, and so that the person that is getting the reading, it really becomes a cathartic kind of experience where
Mm-hmm.
they can feeling like, okay, I have something that I can take with me from this, that they themselves have come to a conclusion of. It's not that I've told them something that they don't already know. It's just that by hearing it and engaging with it, they're able to better decide for themselves, like, okay, I can continue on this path, or I can alter my direction based on what's come to light.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hear that a lot in my sessions too is I already know this. And
Mhm.
I'm like, exactly. This is giving you a chance to sit down, to have somebody to bounce things off of, to hear and reflect back to you what you already know. We're tapping into inner wisdom. We're tapping into the subconscious, the soul, whether it's in hypnosis or therapy with me, or whether it's in tarot or art or even yoga with you. It's your inner strength, your inner power. And so when you sit with somebody with that sacred intention, you are bringing forward what you already know to be true. And I love when I hear that because, it is that confirmation of, oh, yeah, we're on the right path always. It's just sometimes we get a little cloudy and a little bit uncertain in ourselves. And so if I can reawaken and re strengthen that in somebody, then that is absolutely a good day.
Yes, yeah. And there's so much still I feel like I have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, you know, feel, I mean, I use the word maven, but really, like, I'm still a student in so much. There's so many ways to, use divination and tools of divination.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I was taught, at a very young age. I was introduced when I was, like 14 years old or something. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just something that was familiar to me. But, um, there's so many ways, like, especially, as we were talking about nature and using the signs and synchronicities of nature. Like the other morning after I taught yoga, I just kind of had this call to take the longer route. And I was like, there's an animal here that wants me, you know,
Mm.
there's an animal out here that I'm supposed to meet. And I took this drive, and it was a longer drive, like I mean, I could go like a mile to my house, but I went like, 10 instead or something. And across my path flew a blue heron.
Mm.
Like, I love the blue heron, and I have seen, several throughout my life, but it was like, it was special.
Yeah. This is so crazy because I just saw a blue heron yesterday. I can't remember the last time I've seen a blue heron. Like, that's insane. I love that so much. Oh my gosh.
Funny that story would come up.
Yeah. Oh, and well, we had a neat thing last night too with another bird. It's birds often for me too.
Mhm.
And my son won an essay contest. So we drove all the way, it was like 45 minutes away to Brockway. And we were leaving and we left, much later than what we needed to, and just, kind of those one thing after another, and finally got out of there. And as we were pulling out of the parking lot, we're passing the tank and the American flag because it's the American Legion, so they have the war memorial type things there. And my
Mhm.
husband goes, "Oh my gosh, there is an eagle!" And this eagle flew right over the car. And I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture, like just as it's going past the American flag. I'm like, "You don't get much more American than this!" Like, what? Like, crazy. How is that even? You couldn't even make that up if you tried.
Have a picture now in the comments for.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I love that you listen to those intuitive hits as well, because I think, like we were talking about earlier, when we get caught up in the busyness, in the grind, the daily grind, we miss those intuitive hits of go this way, go to the trail, go, call this person. Every time I get a nudge to reach out to somebody, I always do it because every single time they'll be like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear from somebody today, or I needed that connection, that conversation. And so I always trust that. So I love that and I know you do, but I love that you're sharing how you trusted that intuition and how it played out for you with that beautiful interaction with the blue heron.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, what do I do with that information now? And it's just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't try to dig, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think that was sort of, and being a seeker too. It's like, yeah, there's a point where it's like, okay, now let it come.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time sometimes for the clarity from that interaction to like bring about, and I don't try to rush those things anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and yoga really does help, quiet the mind, and that
Mm-hmm.
thing is to letting the breath move you, and the breath represents spirit really in the practice of yoga. And so when you bring the breath into guiding your movements, and then you're syncing your mind with your body. So
Yes.
just, living in automation, but in, intention and
Mm-hmm.
clarity, you know.
Yeah, let's talk about the yoga a little bit, because that really is so soothing to our nervous systems, and definitely something that I help people do in my sessions too, is that we start to pay attention to the breath and we
Mhm.
allow that breath to flow to any of those tight or painful places. And, with the yoga, you're doing the physical action to help loosen that up, to help move those emotions. In my sessions, they're laying down and relaxing. So they're using the power of the mind and intention to release whatever is stuck in those places, to get those messages. And yeah, if you would like to talk a little bit about your yoga philosophy a little bit beyond what you were just starting to share there, and how you bring that in and how you use it to teach others too.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So so I start yoga the same way I start a tarot session, and that's
Mm,
just like noticing the breath and then coming into the space and deepening the breath so that we're slowing our hearts down and creating more of a rhythm that's in sync, with one another. And I think that is like a human need, is to regulate ourselves to one another
mhm,
and be in sync. And so I know I have practiced at home yoga for a long time, not in a space with other people, and just kind of either self-guided or guided by, a YouTube video or something like that. And I did training um, through through two different schools. One was for children's yoga, and that was based out of Australia, and that was amazing because it's all about having fun and
mm,
using, you're learning how to be mindful, but you're enjoying it by like just having fun and singing songs and
mhm,
things. So I do try to bring a little bit of that joy, that like inner child kind of like joy out a little bit throughout our time together. Like we have an hour, and it goes by so fast every time we open our eyes from our corpse pose, our shavasana. It's so, and sit back up to bow, to one another. It's always like, wow, like that was an
yeah.
hour that just went by so fast, and so
I love that. If I can comment on that, I love bringing forward that inner child and that more playfulness and fun. I cannot tell you how many times somebody's spirit team, whether it's guides or angels or ancestors, are like, okay, like let's get a little bit less serious. Let's have a little more fun. Let's smile more, laugh more, play. And yeah, as adults, we get way too serious
yeah,
about everything.
it
So I
was great.
love that.
The other morning we sat down to get started, and we were all just laughing, like whether we're laughing at
Hmm.
ourselves or for each other. It's just like it was so great. Like, we just found ourselves all like laughing before we got started.
Yes. I think there's even laughing yoga where you do nothing but force a laugh until you start laughing. And that is amazing because I love to
I
laugh.
really know, but yeah, that would be a great another path to explore. There's so
Yeah.
many paths to yoga. Um, but so many people. I did an event the other day in Kane that was for like women's self-care. It was like a
Mm.
women's happy hour. So there were several businesses centered around self-care, and I had many people come up to me and say like, I've seen this, but I don't know. I don't, I've never done it. I don't want to be like a fool or something like
Mm-hmm.
um I just like, I think the fear to begin, like, just, squash it, because like getting started is much more important than like the fear to look silly or something like that.
Yeah. And the perfection.
It's
Yeah. Just
a little
show
bit
up.
comfortable, and just showing up. There's really so many ways that, and what I emphasize in doing yoga together is that this is your yoga. So no matter what I'm saying, you're listening to your body
Hmm.
first, and that it's building the relationship with you and your body, so that you can listen and say like, either this pose is too much for me, or I'm going to do it this way, or, finding your footing, finding foundations. Like we really do. We go back to the basics every single session. There's
Hmm.
never, I feel like you're never too much of a beginner, and you're never too much in advancement to be just kind of coming back to a practice. Like there's, it's like
Absolutely.
it's to do it that suit you where you are in that day, and
Yeah, and our bodies change so much throughout our lifetimes, and right now I'm the strongest that I've been in a long time, but I'm like, okay, like let's stay in the present because that could shift and change at any time. And I know, you've been through cancer treatments. I'm coming out of a very difficult pregnancy at 40 and then significant birth injury. And just as and then processing the grief around his death, and just as I was coming out of that, getting Lyme's and Bartonella diagnosis. And man, like all of that takes a toll. And when you go through things, and now at almost 42, I've been through so many ups and downs. It's like you got to stay in the present
Yeah.
and honor your body where it is today, because
Yeah.
yesterday looked different and tomorrow is going to look different. So where am I today, and what does my body most need
Right.
today? So I love that you're saying, yeah, check in with your body. It's a practice. It is
Yeah.
not perfection, and it
Mhm.
is not static. It is a practice that's going to shift and change over time. So,
So it'll take time to get used to the poses. Like it's not going to necessarily feel natural to hold your body
mm-hmm.
in warrior pose at first, but then like, and I will be doing a series here in Kane, starting in June and going through the summer. And it is going to be more focused on yoga for the chakras. So you had brought
Mm,
the chakras earlier, and
yeah.
each week, we're going to kind of focus on the chakras. We're going to move through them in our poses, and because there's thousands of yoga poses, and
Mm-hmm.
there's an infinite amount of ways to breathe movement into your body in a way that brings the energy, restores energy, balances the energy, grounds. I think grounding is a big
Mm-hmm.
thing that um for me, that I remind myself of weekly when we're in practice, is like anchoring in, um so yeah. And that for me, like when I had gone through my surgery, and the biggest, I've never had really experienced a surgery before in all my life. And when I was in the hospital, and in that moment, like, and I was like, well, you take time to just rest and be still and sleep and do nothing. And then it was like, okay, well, I need to start moving now. How am I going to do that? And I approached it with my breath, like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna sit up, and we're gonna breathe, and I think that's why it's so important to do a practice, whether you're wherever you are in your feeling. Like if you're feeling great, that's a great time to do it, because then you can take that with you when those
Mm-hmm.
things come around. We all experience those ups and downs in life, and so it's like when you're in that place where you're like, I need something right now, like you can come back to your breath and start there, and
Yeah.
have that's your first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love how you're talking about the breath, because that is so important when we're connecting for a session, whether that's tarot or anything else, and then connecting connecting the mind and body with the breath at the beginning of yoga. And then we can even talk about that with art. The type of art that you teach and encourage people to do is very intuitive, is very flowy and expansive, instead of that rigidity. And I think, that's another thing that I love about what you teach is, again, we tend towards rigidity. We tend towards structure, and it has to be this
Yeah.
way. And I think that is what, whether it's the art or other creative practices, it does start to bring back in that imagination. It brings back in that that possibility, instead of like, it has to be this way, it has to look this way, and I have to be perfect at it. And so, yeah, I would love to hear more about the your art process and kind of what you're offering today around that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I think, like, yeah, we set goals for ourselves, and then we want it to turn out just like that. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much along the way that can come up that, is another possibility, and things like that. And so with the art, I just I began studying mandalas when I was an undergrad at IUP, and it really just became the format for me, in terms of what, like, my formula. When I sit down to a canvas, like, I want it to, when I get done with it, I want it to look alive like that. I remember having that thought, when I was like starting out, like, in really creating, what, and I mean, I explore lots of different, like, I don't hold myself just to that, like what I show, in terms of a finished product, and then all the different, just expressive marks that I make. I don't share everything out with the world because, but there's I have so many journals and things that I just, will just write or stream consciousness or, color in for the sake of, keeping that the color rays, alive and moving and everything. But it is moving energy. And having kind of keeping that sense of like keeping it open for interpretation. So, I'll make something and then it'll be years later where I'm like, that's really what that meant. I didn't know it then, that what I was making meant that, or
Mm-hmm.
something, I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense. But yeah, so when we do mandala art together, and we were gathering monthly near the full moon, which is actually almost counter to my inner nature, because during the full moons I tend to be a lot more like needing rest because
Mm.
energy does spike, like, and I when I try to like express it outwardly to others, like the energy that's trying to, really be expressed, sometimes it just comes out like a big like blah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, we're in the midst of like an eclipse season right now. So this
Mm.
full moon coming up next week. It's 5/5, which is like the number 55 is like a master number of like change and everything. And when we look at eclipse seasons, really they carry over into like a 6 month kind of like, it's almost like a tunnel or like some kind of a portal
Mm-hmm.
that we open to. So we're sort of in between, which I don't know if you, really sensed this. And then sitting out on my back porch, like around sunset time, and really just sensing this bit of like stillness where it's
Mm.
almost like this, we're in the center of sort of like a storm or something,
Mm-hmm.
But that's really kind of what the mandala is too, in a sense. We're finding the center point on the canvas, for which like everything else moves around, because it represents almost like a vortex of energy,
Yeah.
and that um encompasses a pathway, into an energy. When we think about our bodies, like there's our neural pathways, all these little points of information, like they're finite, they're so small we can't visually see it, but there's so much information that lies in just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, so taking the time to meditate with that. The mandalas, like, when we get together as a class, it's about a 2 hour long experience, and so that includes a little bit of a centering. There's also a lot of room for color mixing, like within the palette. That is, I choose a palette of colors that represents a lot of times like the seasons or things, like that natural, what's happening kind of in the natural space of things. And then we use the flower of life as a grid to traverse the rotations, and so
Mm-hmm.
rotate around the canvas. Several layers, usually about 7 or 8. It comes out to be 7 or 8 layers, including the grid itself. So we'll do like the grid, and then we'll color. We'll paint. We'll paint over the grid. We'll use like orange to mark our grid, and orange we use because I was painting in a mural project, and they always use orange as the frame, and so
The
I just
base.
stick with that, kind of just keeping it rootsy.
Yeah.
And then we paint a big yellow circle for the moon. like
Mm-hmm.
simple, like a lot of it really is simple. So I simplify it to where it becomes more abstract. So the interpretation of every painting is so unique to the person that's doing it, even though there's common instruction, like everybody's expression of it comes out beautifully because
Yeah.
it's their own expression of it. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're bringing their own flair, their own needs, their own interpretation. And I love that. Now, are these only in person or do you do online? I think at one time you were doing online, but have they gone to all in person again?
yeah, I've been shifting it. Just you know, right now I don't have a plan for it. I
Mm-hmm.
am offering it if people have a small group that they want to schedule a time, create some kind of an event around it, like that
Mm-hmm.
is open. I'm open for that. Scheduling. I don't have any planned online right now. I've I did do a live stream on Instagram, on my Instagram, House of the Mystical Maven, for I think that was February's. It was an
Mm-hmm.
Aquarius moon.
Yeah.
And last May's, we did a painting together. It's a Scorpio. It's a Scorpio full moon, and so there's always a lot of intense energy with Scorpio full moons. And given that it's an eclipse, too, it was a blood moon
Oh,
eclipse
yeah.
last year. So yeah, it was like the energy was surging. I think we had like 18 people,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, it was really an incredible kind of experience.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's, so kind of moving into what you're offering at the expo and then kind of beyond that, I think I would love to have you come down and offer a class. So, I can get a group together. So, if there's other people out there that can get a group together, then you can have Shelly come and host that group. So, I think that's a great way to kind of allow other people to bring their people together. And then you're coming and offering your piece in that. I'm doing that with chakra readings and energy balancings, the,
Yeah.
purpose and past life oracle readings, because they have their people. So they bring them together. And then I show up and offer what I offer. I just did a chakra balancing in basics that I didn't organize it. Somebody else organized it and had me come to their people. And so I love that energy where people are invested, they want to show up, they want you to come and offer your kind of your magic to them. So
It
I
just
love that.
to the point where I was like, okay, I get too wrapped up in the planning of it. And then
Mhm.
like I'm catering the art to try to think about what people want rather than what
Mhm.
wants to be expressed. And so I've kind of just put a hold on me planning the event
Yes.
as well as creating the art because it's splicing myself into.
Mhm.
And then I'm not able to really. So the last couple months, I've just focused on what art needs to come out for me personally
Yeah.
because I was making it so that it would suit what other people might
Yeah.
be needing. And then I'm like, okay, well, until that time where people are like, now that I'm coming back out of this. I mean, I'm still coming out of winter.
Yeah, hibernation.
Since I'm just kind of starting for the year for me.
Mhm.
So like, yeah, this is when I'll be promoting more like, okay, if you have a small group, like we can, and so I'll be bringing my collection of mandalas that we did throughout 2020 and 2023, whether that be like, whether you would choose like, okay, we want to do this painting that's here together,
Mhm.
like that's an option, or we can kind of come up with a customized sort of design that suits the energy that you're really wanting to kind of explore.
Yeah. I
And it
love
is
that. Yeah.
inspiration, it feels great to complete something, like everybody.
Mhm.
I take pictures of like the group when we're done and everybody looks so happy because
Yeah.
they did it and they completed it. And, it can be so intimidating to see a blank canvas and think like, what am I going to make? I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know where to start.
Yeah,
So
and I'm not an artist, so I have no inspiration when I look at a blank canvas. So I need somebody like you to guide and lead me. So yeah, we'll definitely talk more. I definitely want to offer some more experiential things locally here in Punxsutawney. And so yes, we'll talk more about this, and we'll have to look at your human design as well, because I know I'm a um, generator, so I have to be invited. So invitation is important. And it sounds like maybe that's kind of what's going on with you too. You're recognizing you need that invitation instead of you creating and then people coming to that, so it's just an interesting interplay, but also being true to yourself. Today I just sent out an email and made posts asking for feedback. And I need that feedback because I know I need to know what people want and need from my services, but it also has to be in alignment with how I want to offer things and how my soul needs to offer things as well. So it's a beautiful interplay when you're creating something that speaks to you and that also people feel inspired by and called to participate in too. So I love that.
yeah, that's a great point. And I think, yeah, as you're saying that sounds pretty true to me. Like even as you were saying the first time we met, that invitation that you gave me to like set is
Mm-hmm.
just meant like the world at the time,
Yeah, yeah.
So
So for the expo, which will be June 24th here in Punxsutawney, and we hope to see you in person. But of course, you can also check Shelley out on her social medias at the House of the Mystical Maven, and that's also on Etsy. And so you are going to have your artwork, you're going to have some wildcrafted herbal tools, some gemstones, and then also your tarot readings, correct?
that's correct. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
And
and
well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just going back to that invitation piece, because I had a thought that it dawned on me recently, was that, let me just kind of hold on to it here.
Sure.
Was that, being in this space and trying to create monthly events, it's like not everyone wants to do soul work every full moon.
Yes.
So it's like, the pool can be small physically where I am, which is why I'm like
Mm-hmm.
trying to create more of that online presence and do more, streaming online and
Mm-hmm.
with others who I haven't met yet in person, but know that want the things that I have to offer. I just don't know them yet,
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, because it is kind of like it shines a light, the full moon shines a light into the darkened areas, and that is this work that we're doing. So, and I think that kind of comes along with that invitation too. It's like, are you ready? Because I know what I bring
Mm-hmm.
sometimes is going to catalyze some transformation. And that's really what the foundation of my art was from the beginning. Like I was introduced to that word from my very first drawing class, and it was like that has stuck with me the entire time. And so like
Yeah.
that is part of it is like, yeah, I want to know that you want that too. And then I can really really build from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The more you share how ready you are for what I have to give, that reciprocation.
Yes, absolutely. It is a beautiful back and forth interplay. And, I've learned over the years to match energy. So I will help people with that transformation starting where they are at. It's not about what I think they need, it's about what they most need in that moment. And I think that that's exactly what you're offering too. Your art is going to transform people, your tarot sessions are going to transform people, the yoga is, but that's also dependent on where they are in their life. And that's why I love you, because you are so gentle and so inquisitive and intuitive. So you just bring this beautiful interplay together that really does allow people to just be themselves.
Oh, Thank you for saying that. Thank you for
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Well, we need to wrap up today. And thank you so much for being here. And I cannot wait for other people to be exposed to your amazingness. And I am looking forward to seeing you in person on the 24th. And hopefully, I'll see you either before that or we can do some other things later on this summer or even into the fall. But yeah, anything else you want to say before we wrap up today?
I just want to thank you for holding this space and for
Mm,
gathering people together. I've really enjoyed every conversation that I've listened to, up to this
mm-hmm.
point about what's coming in the expo. And I think it's just going to be a really beautiful gathering of beautiful humans.
Yes.
And so I'm really excited to meet, others.
Everybody. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we have some fun playing, with all these tools and gifts that we share. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yes. And we want to say thank you to everybody that listens and interacts today. And you can find Shelley at the Mystical Maven, and you can find me at Celebrate Every Step, and that is on the web and all socials. And if you have any questions or feedback, please send either one of us a message, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.